Hey there, and welcome to another episode of One Email, Two Takes. I'm Will Allred, and every week, myself and my colleague, Christina Fensath, riding solo this week, take emails that are either sent to us or submitted for feedback, and we offer our two takes, our two perspectives on how we would rewrite that email. And so this week, I have an email that was sent to me from a recruiting firm trying to get me interested in their services. Now, I can tell you there's some fundamental flaws with this message, and it really portrays back to how people are reading email. And I don't think enough of us are really thinking about this. So I'm going to share my screen here. And your first impression is probably going to be, oh, that's a templated sales email, right? Why that's the case is there's a few key items here that are going to stand out. One is within the subject line, it starts with your talent will. SalesLoft actually did some really interesting analyses on this. And what they found was very simply, when you put a first name within the subject line, that little token, right? What ends up happening is you reduce your chance of getting response by about 20%. So you might think you're personalizing, but you're personalizing like a marketer and you're a salesperson trying to send an email. And so no wonder you see 1 out of 5 fewer responses as a byproduct, right? Now, let's also talk about this first line. So the first line also screams, this came out of, a template. This is a, canned message that is going out the door in high speed automation. 5 years ago, this is probably a killer email. Problem is buyers have caught up. If you think about what's happening when a buyer is reading this message, they are comparing it really rapidly against every other email that they've ever seen, right? I refer to this as the mental spam filter. And so what happens is they open a message and on average, they spend about 10 seconds actually reading this note. And so by the time they've gotten through the first line, they have already, before they probably even opened the email, they've categorized it in their brain as yet another sales email. And that means you're being written off before they've even had a chance to read what you've written. And so noting that you only have 10 seconds, right, of average reading time, it's no surprise that better emails are shorter, better meaning they get more positive response. But the other piece here is just this message is going to be filtered and categorized very poorly not in your favor. I put this in blue here because it was hyperlinked. I've also seen some data around that where hyperlinking within your cold emails is going to reduce your response rate. But let's go through this line by line, right? Common theme I hear when speaking to co-founder and COOs is that they find it difficult to find and retain IT talent. It's an oddly specific grouping to go after. Additionally, they often need developers, engineers, or data analysts only for a short period of time. It's a two-way street. I don't really know why it's a two-way street. Doesn't really make logical sense to add that, but whatever. That is why we created our company. Our company eliminates the time and costs of finding, hiring, and onboarding talent and allows you to focus on your business. It's very wordy. That's one whole long sentence from top to bottom there. Doesn't need to be that long. There's a lot of things within this message that could be simplified, could be reduced, but I want to talk about something in specific, which is this variable right here that could easily be softened based off of your segmentation. So when I went to rewrite for the first take, I actually kept the message predominantly the same. It wasn't a bad message, right? The problem was, is it just fired off on all these mental spam filters? So for the subject line, I took something much more boring. I didn't necessarily say my first name within it, right? I just said, hey, developer hiring plan. It's almost something you'd see internal within a company, right? It's not, it's pretty neutral. It's just like, hey, what's the hiring plan, right? Yeah, and you'd expect to see that from somebody within a company, just as you would outside the company. Hey, Will, I often hear startup leaders tell me finding IT talent is hard. So let's do a little cross compare. Startup leaders to co-founders and COOs, right? Startup leaders feels a little less like it came out of a straight up like spreadsheet and was copy pasted over, right? The other thing here is I simplified a lot of this language. So common theme I hear when talking to co-founder and COOs is they find it difficult to find and retain IT talent, right? I don't think we need to say finding and retaining. That's probably overkill, but you could add it and it's still simpler. I often hear startup leaders tell me finding IT talent is hard. You could say finding slash keeping IT talent. If you really wanted to keep with like the full pure message, right? It's especially hard knowing you might need a specialist for a short project, but you're stuck hiring a generalist. So instead of, yeah. Additionally, they often need developers, engineers, or data analysts. It's a lot of detail, only for a short period of time. It's a two-way street, right? Instead, let's talk about like the problem that actually creates, because that's the thing the person on the other end really cares about, right? So it's like, but you're stuck hiring a generalist. Instead of making trade-offs that delay roadmap, we built a different way to work with talent, open to learning more. It's a much lighter message. I'm not preaching all the things that I can do to solve for these problems, but at the same time, you kind of get a sense that I know how to operate and I know how to fix these problems based on how I'm discussing these different topics. Google Docs doesn't necessarily know how we would speak at a tech company, but we built a different way to work with talent. That's all you really need to say, because really what you're trying to do is generate a level of curiosity as opposed to generating this like feel of I'm just going to inform you about all the stuff that we do at our company, right? So this is an easy way to scale up the same message. And I could literally take this and adjust out these functions based off of different segments that I'm going after, right? So like startup leaders in this case, that's just a segment that I created, whether I'm using, a data tool like Seamless or Zoom, or I'm in LinkedIn Sales Navigator. That's an easy like grouping that I can create and create a list off of. Now, how I might talk about the problem, it could be different, right? Maybe this is more of a startup-y problem versus how I'd talk to a bigger company about it. The point is I can soften the variables and it sounds more one-to-one versus this canned robotic template structure feel. So just a slightly different way to write the exact same email and have way more impact doing it. Key reasons being we avoided the mental spam filters with how we started here with a softer variable and a better subject line, but we also enhance the message itself by simplifying down the language and really shortening it up as well. Okay, so that's take one. Take two, I couldn't do this without actually writing a personalized version of this, because we know personalized emails get twice as many replies, right? And so subject line EAE hiring help. So EAE, I write a weekly newsletter called Emails About Email. And so this would be an obvious way to like signal it out to me, because when I do my subject line for my weekly newsletter, it's literally EAE and the number of the email, right? And so if you did EAE hiring help, I would immediately see that and you'd be like, hey, Will, in your weekly newsletter, you mentioned you're hiring for engineering still. I would immediately be like, oh, this person is trying to actually have a conversation with me. My brain immediately fires and says, that is a one-to-one interaction. That is a person actually trying to converse with me. Let me stop what I'm doing and read what they've written. That is why personalized emails work. And it's actually a relevant message given what you're actually about to go talk to them about, right? So that full stack role has been open for a while. Are you hiring a bunch of engineers, or is this about finding the right fit? So one of the key things I'm doing here, right, is I'm actually just focused on trying to start conversation, right? One of the biggest things I always tell sales reps is get out of this mindset of trying to drive a conversion, get into a mindset of trying to drive a conversation. Just start a conversation. That's all you have to do. A lot of things get way easier when you just start dialogue with someone. Now, that doesn't mean you don't get to talk about what you do at all, because here's what you can do right after. This is what we do at our company. If you already have a recruiter, feel free to let me know, right? Give them the out, give them a very casual, like, hey, if that's already the case, like, no worries, right? You could even like scrap that and say, if you already have a recruiter, no worries. probably even simpler, right? This message is way more optimized for getting a response than the prior one, but the prior one certainly can scale to a larger list size, right? Yeah, you could even get like super specific and be like, PS, saw your mostly in New York City. Is this a remote role, or are you looking local, right? And that can be simply done by just looking at like the location of the person. And so you say, saw your, maybe you just say, saw you're in New York City. Is this a remote role? Are you looking local, right? Simple add-on that you could just like create another segmentation and continue to scale that. That'd probably work really well. For this, the obviously the personalized take is just going to work. But two different approaches to the exact same email, where you could have a really good impact just by making some small minor changes. Now, if this was helpful, let me know. But certainly subscribe to the Sales Hacker newsletter where this goes out every week. This is also going to be posted on the videos page over at saleshacker.com. But yeah, until next time, this is One Email, Two Takes. I'm Will Allred, and hope this was a helpful session.